Sorry. Yes, can you stand up please, because I can't see you.
I am standing up, please.
Yeah, when my kids were born, I was also hoping that they wouldn't have to serve Israel's army, and unfortunately, they have. And they continue to do so in reserve duty. Hope has to come from our leadership, but also from their leadership, because it's very... Palestinian statehood is not something that is in our gift to just give to the Palestinians. Their leaders have to be willing to come to the table and negotiate without preconditions. And they aren't willing to do that. They aren't willing to give up their imagined state, which will be given to them, handed to them on a silver platter by the international community. What they're trying to do right now is go to the international community and say, well, declare a state of Palestine. It's our turn, we deserve it, declare it already. But that can't be done. A Palestinian state can only be arrived at through negotiations by both sides. Now, we've had negotiations for very many years, and I'll let you in on a secret. There are a few basic issues which are the core issues when we come to negotiations. There's borders, i.e. the settlements. There's security. There's Jerusalem. And there's the refugee question, also called the right of return, which the Palestinians say well, let me go back to the beginning. Borders, i.e. the settlements. Israel has proven time and again that when there is a peace agreement, and we started in 1979, just 6 years after the Yom Kippur War. In 1979, we reached a peace agreement with Egypt. If you remember, those of you who remember from that time, the Sinai Peninsula at that time was full of Israeli settlements. There was Yamit, there was Afira, two large and thriving cities, and lots of kibbutzim and moshavim all over the Sinai Peninsula. Every single one of those was withdrawn when we reached the peace agreement with Egypt. And we've done it again and again. We've withdrawn from Gaza when we thought there might be a glimmer of some sort of hope. Unfortunately, it didn't work out very well, but we withdrew from all the settlements in Gaza in 2005. We've withdrawn from some settlements in the West Bank even. People haven't heard about that, but at the same time as we withdrew from Gaza, we withdrew from 4 settlements in the northern West Bank. We've shown time and again that we are willing to withdraw from settlements in order to achieve a border and to reach a peace agreement. So, and when we're talking about negotiations, so spread a map out on the table, stand on both sides with pencils and go down, mark down the border. That's not such a difficult issue to solve. Security. Security cooperation has actually been going on between Israel and the Palestinian Authority for years now, ever since the Oslo Accords. We have security patrols going up and down the West Bank, around all the different areas there, with Palestinians and Israelis working together in order to achieve security. And that's something that is possible to solve. It's possible. People sit down together and they work things out, and it's possible to solve. Now we reach the two tougher issues. Jerusalem. With Jerusalem, back in 2000, when Clinton was leading the Camp David negotiations between Arafat and Ehud Barak, they were able to reach what's called the Clinton parameters. No one's very happy with them, no one really likes them, but they were parameters that both sides were somehow able in some way to live with. I'm not quite sure exactly how much of Jerusalem would have become Palestinian, how much would have become Jewish, what part of it might have become an international zone, but they were able to work things out with the help of President Clinton at the time. What's left? One issue which has returned again and again, and that's the major obstacle to peace. The right of return. The right of return of Palestinian refugees. Palestinian refugees are the only refugees left over from post-World War II, who to this day, how many generations have passed since then? Can we call it 4 generations at this point? We can call it 4 generations. 4 generations later, Palestinian refugees are still the only ones who are still refugees. Refugees, Jewish refugees from Arab countries, no longer considered refugees after 4 generations because they've been settled in Israel, in the UK, in America, in France. They're no longer refugees. Refugees from Poland and from Kosovo and from other parts of Europe, from various other parts of the world. No one else is still considered a refugee 4 generations later. The only refugees who remain refugees for 4 generations are the Palestinians. And what do these refugees want? They don't want to be settled somewhere in the Arab world. They don't even want to be settled in the new Palestinian state, which will supposedly arise from the negotiations. They want to go back to Haifa and to Ramle and to Jaffa and to the western part of Jerusalem and to wherever their great-grandfathers had to leave their homes, because that's where they consider their homes still to be. And that's what is called the right of return, which they're continuing to demand, and that's what's stopping the arrival at any sort of a peace agreement, because the Palestinian leadership is not willing to give up that right, that so-called right on their behalf. Mahmoud Abbas has said that he knows and he has told his children that they will never return to their home in Tzfat. Tzfat is another city in Israel. But he's not willing to stand up and say that in Arabic to his people. He's not willing to say to his people, I'm sorry, when we reach a Palestinian state, those of you who think that you will go back to Lod and to Ramle and to Jaffa will have to come into the Palestinian state in Ramallah and Rawabi and Jericho and all these other cities within the Palestinian state and build the Palestinian state. He's afraid to say that. And that's what is stopping us from reaching a peace agreement. And until he's able to say that, until he's able to stand up and say, there will not be a right of return, we're not going to be able to reach a peace agreement. And unfortunately, those youngsters will not have hope. And that's very, very unfortunate.